Dear students, I am Dr. Panduranga Nayak, Principal, Swiss College, Bangalore. See, in our previous classes, we have already learned as to the meaning of park visits, types of park visits, and even valuation of some of the park visits like rent-free accommodation, concessional accommodation, etc. In this video, we are going to learn something about valuation of motor car. So let us go through the treatment of motor car in different situations and how that is being valued. For example, car is owned or hired by the employer. How do you value this perquisite? The car is used wholly and exclusively in the performance of his official duties. His means here employees official duties. The car is owned or hired by the employer but used exclusively or totally for the performance of official duties. So here the value is absolutely nil. Perquisite value is nil. Now second situation, car is owned by the employer but then it is used exclusively for private or personal purpose of the employee or any member of his household. Second situation is car is owned by the employer but then it is used exclusively, totally, wholly for the private or personal purpose of employee himself or any member of his household. Now how it is valued? So we have to take first actual amount of expenditure incurred on running and maintenance of motor car. See, motor car has to maintain and running expenses are there. So this is the main incurred. So that is the amount that should be considered first. Then remuneration, if any, paid to the driver, that is chauffeur, which means driver. Okay, so that should be taken. And then depreciation. If you own the motor car, it is subject to depreciation. So 10% per annum of the actual cost of the motor car, that should be added, and thereby the total of these three has to be added. Then you will get the value of the perquisite. But if any amount is collected from the employee towards this, then that should be deducted and the remaining amount will be considered as value of perquisite. So if the car is owned by the employer and if it is exclusively used or utilized for private or personal purpose of the employee or any member of his household, the valuation of perquisite goes like this. First, running and maintenance expenses, remuneration paid to driver if any, and then depreciation at 10% per annum on the actual cost of the motor car. So if you add up, you will get the actual value of perquisite. But if any amount is collected from the employee or charged from the employee, then the net value of perquisite you will get. So that is taxable value. Third situation, car is taken on lease. In the previous case, it is owned by the employer. But here it is taken on lease by the employer, but used for the same purpose. That is exclusively for the private or personal purpose of either employee himself or any member of his household. Here it is just similar to the previous case, but for depreciation. Because if it is not owned by you, there is no question of charging depreciation. So actual amount incurred on the running and maintenance of the motor car, remuneration if any paid to the chauffeur, which means driver if any, so that should be taken. Followed by that, when you add up these two values, you will get the perquisite value of motor car. But if any amount is collected from the employee, then that should be deducted, and therefore the net amount is considered as value of perquisite. When compared to the previous case, only one change here. So this depreciation part is not there because it is taken on lease, that's not owned by the employer. Look at the fourth one. The car is owned or hired by the employer, and car is used partly in the performance of his duties and partly for private or personal purposes of either employee himself or any member of his household. Okay, so thus taken on lease but used both for official purpose as well as personal or private purpose, either by employee or any member of the household. Here involves who bears the running and maintenance expenses. If the expenses are borne by the employer, then again the question is whether the car is bigger one or smaller one. If the car is small, now how do you define car small? So car is said to be small one if the cubic capacity of the engine of the car does not exceed 1.6. Suppose it is exactly 1.6, then it is considered to be small car. If it is above 1.6, then it is called bigger car or larger car. So if it is smaller one, the per visit value is 1,800. If it is larger one, it is 2,400. In addition to that, if service of the driver is also provided, then per month 900 is considered. So this is car is owned or hired by the employer, but used for both the purposes, official as well as private, and then running and maintenance expenses are borne by the employer. Next one, if it is borne by the employee, other things remaining the same, then of course, in the case of small car means I already told you cubic capacity of the engine of that car does not exceed 1.6 liters. So it is 600 per month here. In the previous case, it is 1,800, but here 600 per month. Whereas if the car is bigger one or larger one, then 900 per month. In the previous case, it is 2,400 per month. And driver's salary remains the same. So this is about car owned and hired by the employer, but then used for both personal and private purposes by the employee or any member of his household. Then it depends upon running and maintenance expenses borne either by the employer or employee, again based on whether the car is small one or large one. Now we'll move on to the fifth situation. Here employee uses more than one car for private purposes. So where more than one motor car is owned or hired by the employer, here owned and hired by the employer so far in all cases. And the employee or any member of the household is allowed to use such motor cars otherwise than wholly or exclusively in the performance of duties. That means it is used both for official purposes as well as private purposes. Then the value per visit shall be in respect of one car. So more than one car is used by the employee, and cars are used both for official purposes as well as personal purposes. So in respect of one car, okay, small car, if it is small car, and you know what is small car, cubic capacity of the engine of the car does not exceed 1.6 liter, 1,800 per month. If it is large car, it is 2,400 per month. Similar case you have come across previously. And if driver's service is also provided, then again 900 per month. In respect of other cars, the per visit value is calculated as if it is used exclusively for private purposes. If it is used for private purposes exclusively, then how it should be valued? That depends upon whether the car is owned by the employer or it is hired or taken on lease. If it is owned by the employer, you see, it is to be valued like this. If it is owned by the employer and it is used totally for private purposes, then it should be valued like this. That is actual cost of expenditure of running and maintenance, remuneration if any to the driver, and then depreciation at the rate of 10% per annum on the cost of the motor car. And if any amount is collected, deduct. If it is taken on hire, but for depreciation, all other things remaining the same. That way, the car should be used. So let me make it very clear. One car should be valued as if it is owned and hired by the employer, and running and maintenance expenses are assumed to be by the employer, and therefore small car 1,800 per month and large car 2,400 per month. In respect of other car or cars, it is valued as if it is valued, the value is determined as in 2 above, that you already learned. that is exclusively used for personal or private purposes and owned by the employer. In that case, running and maintenance expenses, depreciation, and one more thing is yes, and remuneration to driver. So all the three things should be added. And if it is taken on lease, only two things, that is running and maintenance expenses plus driver's salary, if any. So that way that has to be valued. Now, if there are many cars, the question is which one is to be taken as point A and which one is to be taken as point B. There is a controversy, and the law is not very clear. Then how it should be done or valued? Just see here. Where more than one car is provided for official and private purposes, the expenses incurred in relation to one car are more than the expenses incurred in relation to other cars. That means there are two cars and the expenses of one car is not equal to that of other one. Then how it should be valued? One car is small and the other car is large. Then the rules do not provide the method of valuation in such situation. I mean to say whether it should be taken as small or large. So such things are there. Hence the value of the cars may be determined in such a manner which is beneficial to the employee. So one car you have to take smaller one and it should be valued like this, and second one is to be valued like this. But which one should be taken as point A and which one has to be taken B, that is left to the assessee only, and whichever method is beneficial to him, that should be adopted by him. So don't worry much about this. While solving the problems, you will come across the treatment of this item. A car owned by the employee. So where the actual running and maintenance charges, including driver's salary, are met or reimbursed by the employer, and such reimbursement is for the use of car only and exclusively for official purposes. So here you must remember, car is owned by the employer and running and maintenance expenses including driver's salary are met by the employer, and the car is used for simply official purposes, exclusively for official purposes. In that case, perquisite value is nil. Point B or situation B. Car is owned by the employee, but situation B, where the expense of reimbursement of expenses. Reimbursement means first expenses will be met by the employee, and then later on that will be given back by the employer to the employee. That's called reimbursement. First met by the employee from his pocket, and that will be returned by the employer later on. That's called reimbursement. Where reimbursement of expenses of the car is wholly for personal purpose of the employee or any member of his household. In the previous case, it is exclusively for official purposes. But here, it is wholly for personal purpose of employee or any member of the household. Then the value shall be taken equal to amount reimbursed. Whatever amount is reimbursed by the employer to the employee, that is taken as perquisite value. Point C. Where reimbursement of expenses of the car is partly for official purposes and partly for personal purpose of the employee or any member of his household. Here again depends upon small car or big car. So if it is small car, what is the actual amount of expenditure incurred by the employer? What amount has been reimbursed by the employer minus the total of rupees 1,800 per month because the car is small one, and driver's salary 900 per month. Total must be deducted from the actual amount of expenditure incurred by the employer. Second one, if the car is a large one, here the value of perquisite shall be amount of expenditure incurred by the employer, whatever expenditure has been incurred by the employer or is reimbursed, minus, since it is a bigger car, it is total of 2,400 per month plus driver's remuneration, if any, 900 per month. So total of these two should be deducted from actual amount of expenditure. So this is how the facility of motor car is to be valued as perquisite. So perquisite value of the motor car is to be ascertained. So this is what I have to tell as far as the valuation of motor car is concerned. So you have to continuously read again and again, otherwise there will be confusion. So you have to learn systematically. And again, nothing to worry. We are going to solve some problems once we complete the theoretical part of valuation of different purposes. Once we take up the problems, each and every item is going to be taken separately, and then you'll be able to follow that properly. So for the time being, this is enough. Thank you very much.